On today's show, a guy that I thought might be a fit for the Cavs in free agency signed somewhere else. We'll talk about that and when the Cavs might make their first move in free agency of the offseason. That's all straight ahead right here on Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Give us a 5-star review. Help us to grow the show so we can bring you more great content. You can also find the show on YouTube. Just search Locked On Cavs on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. Click that notification bell. Be sure you're getting the latest Locked On Cavs content, both the long form and the shorts on the Locked On Cavs YouTube. Today's episode is also brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Hi everyone, I'm Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers at places such as 92.3 The Fan, Cleveland Magazine, and a number of other places along the way. Today's show, I want to talk a little bit about Saddiq Bey. He was a guy that I thought made some sense for the Cavs in the free agency market. He is now signed with the Washington Wizards, so that's one guy off the board. I want to rank the available free agent targets that are remaining. And lastly, I want to touch upon the Team USA situation as Kawhi Leonard no longer going to be on the team. Donovan Mitchell not selected to replace him. So I want to talk about whether or not that was the right move or not, both for the Cavs and for Team USA. So we'll get into all of that. But Saddiq Bey, on Wednesday evening, it was reported by ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski that Bey had reached terms with the Washington Wizards on a 3-year deal worth $20 million. Now, if you're not familiar with Bey, he most recently played for the Atlanta Hawks, spent some time in Detroit with the Pistons as well. He's a guy that, I really do like his game. However, he tore his ACL in March. So he is someone that if this signing was going to be made, and this is part of the reason why I do like it for Washington, but if this signing was going to be made, he's not someone that was necessarily going to be signed as a he can help right now type of player. Just because you don't know when ACLs can be tricky. We experienced it here with Ricky Rubio not too long ago where, he tore his ACL and it was 13 or 14 months before he was back on the floor and he really wasn't ever 100% again in a Cavs uniform. So you don't know what Bey is going to be in terms of that, his production in Washington, but that's not something for Cavs fans to care about. What Cavs fans care about is that another target that theoretically, and the injury concerns aside, theoretically made sense for the Cavs, ended up somewhere else. While the Cavs have not made any outside moves this offseason. It is July 10th at 11 o'clock as I record this, so they've had quite a bit of time since the new league year started. And yes, the move they've made is to re-sign Donovan Mitchell, and there was not a bigger move they could make all offseason. There's no question about that. And just for that, and what I think they've done really well with the coaching staff, just for those things alone, they're going to get a good offseason grade for me because they kept the most important player. I think they got a really good coach. So you should be happy with those things, but that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be goals for the team to improve, and they haven't done that externally at this moment. Now, of course, the offseason isn't over. I'm not going to sit here and judge them for an entire offseason on July 10th or July 11th. So that is something that you do have to keep in mind. But Bey is someone that I thought would have made sense in Cleveland. I understand the trepidations because of that injury, because you don't know what he's going to be. You don't know when he's going to be back on an NBA floor. Like, there's a world next year where he does not play an NBA game. And for the Cavs, with the limited roster space that they have, with the limited avenues to spend, now, he was certainly affordable. A 3-year deal worth $20 million is something the Cavs could have figured out in that ballpark without question. They would have been able to find a way to make that happen. But I understand they're not being involved here, or even if it's not being involved, but them not signing Saddiq Bey because of the giant question mark that he is for next season. So I do get that. It makes sense, but it also makes me wonder, at what point are the Cavs going to be a team that we hear about making another move. And what's that move going to look like? Because there are a number of free agents still available. And I'll talk about them in a little bit. But should we worry about the Cavs that they haven't made a move in free agency? Or should this offseason just be about how this team is going to change its identity, even if it's on the margins, but change some of its identity via trade, via maybe a signing trade? You know, we heard rumors that they were attached to Miles Bridges. Obviously, Bridges goes back to Charlotte, and the Cavs, you know, I don't want to say struck out there because I don't think that was something that was really ever close to happening. I think that there was probably some interest, but I don't think that the Cavs were ever in a position where they thought they were going to actually land Miles Bridges. But it makes me wonder, okay, well, that didn't work out. The sign and trade avenue hasn't worked out. We know Isaac Okoro is still floating around out there as a restricted free agent. We don't know what's going to happen to him. He very well could be on the move via a sign and trade to somewhere else. They haven't made a trade. They haven't signed anybody. What is the next step in this offseason? What's this offseason going to look like? Because it's been much quieter than I thought it would be. I never anticipated the Cavs being a team that was going to be heavy players in free agency. Like, I thought there were some guys, okay, maybe if you can get this guy for the mid-level exception, and certainly some of those guys are still available on this open market right now, but I thought that this would have moved quicker than it has. I wonder how much the Isaac Okoro situation is holding that up. We know this team has all the clarity they need moving forward right now because Donovan Mitchell has pledged to spend the best years of his career in Cleveland. So that is one thing that you do have to remember when going through this. It was okay, I thought, to say, okay, at the start of free agency, I wouldn't expect anything to happen until Donovan Mitchell's situation is settled. Felt very strongly he was going to sign that contract extension. Obviously, that has happened. But after that happened, I thought things would start moving, would pick up a little bit. I thought they would be moving quicker. I thought we would be hearing, the Cavs involved for some of these mid-tier free agents, some guys that still haven't found a home. I also thought we would hear the Cavs involved for some potential trade targets. We haven't really heard much about that either. This has been a much quieter offseason in Cleveland than I expected it to be. I thought that this offseason, even if they didn't want to split up the core four, even if they didn't want to trade one of Jared Allen or Darius Garland, because those are the two guys that theoretically could be available, I still thought we would hear more about this organization. I thought we would hear more about potential moves that they could make. I thought they would have made a move by now. I'm surprised that I'm sitting here talking to you, the second week in July, and it still hasn't happened yet. So that gets me to the question, is running it back okay? Because I don't think it is running it back all the way. If you want to run back the core four, okay, I can get on board with that. It's not necessarily the direction I would go, but I can get on board with that. I can see a vision. I can buy, we want to see what it looks like under Kenny Atkinson. We want to see how this group fits together with more advanced offensive styles than what we had under the previous coaching staff. I can totally get on board with that. I can buy that. It might not be the thing that I believe the most, but I can get on board with it. But what I don't think I can get on board with is just running it back with it. Everyone, the same roster for the most part. Maybe not Marcus Morris Sr., but for the most part, the same roster as last year. That was a team that underachieved because of injuries. They were, I think, a better team than their record because of the injuries. But I also don't think, even if they get a fully healthy Donovan Mitchell and a fully healthy Jarrett Allen in the second round against Boston, I don't think they're beating Boston 4 times in 7 games. Now, that series might go to 6 games, but I think that's still a series Boston wins. And now we've seen other teams in the Eastern Conference get better, and I don't think anyone right now is better than Boston, but we've seen New York get closer to Boston. We've seen Philadelphia get closer to Boston. I think Orlando has gotten better, even if I don't love the max contract that they gave Franz. So these other teams are either pulling ahead of the Cavs or catching up to the Cavs in the case of Orlando. I don't know if they're all the way there, but they're a better team than they were last year. The Cavs, I don't think, can bank solely on, 1, being fully healthy next year. That's a tough ask in the NBA. And 2, that much internal development that they can go up a level without having to make any outside additions. I'm not saying that there need to be major additions from the outside. I'm not saying you have to trade Jared Allen for Brandon Ingram. I'm not saying you have to do that. It should be an option, but you don't have to do that. But there needs to be something done to change this roster at least a little bit. At least a little bit. And we're at the point now where I still think something's going to happen. I find it hard to believe nothing is going to happen just because of the way the Isaac Okoro situation looks right now. But it's been a lot longer than I thought it would be. I didn't think it would take this long. I didn't think we would see this many guys go off of the board before I really started to question, okay, well, what's going on here? What's taking so long? So I am curious what the next route's going to be, because there are some free agents that still are available. And I want to go through a list. Hoops Hype put together a list of the 25 best remaining free agents. Really, it's 24 because Saddiq Bey was on there and it hasn't been updated since he agreed to terms. So I want to talk about some of those guys, some that I don't think are fits for the Cavs, others that I do think are fits for the Cavs. So we'll do that next. Keep it right here at Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, and that makes getting tickets so much easier. It's fast, it's easy, it's painless, and prices actually tend to drop the closer you get to first pitch. That's an awesome thing, because if you're like me and you want to make a last-minute decision to go check out a Cleveland Guardians game because you were listening to the Locked On Guardians podcast and said, hey, you know what? That team sounds fun. I want to go check them out. Gametime is your place to go hunting for tickets. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, so you know what you're going to pay. There's no surprises at the end when you finally go to checkout. Oh, there's a $25 service fee. No, Gametime doesn't do that. They tell you up front what it's going to cost you, plus views from your seat, and of course, their lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. As I've been saying, the last baseball game I went to, I used Gametime. I had a great experience. Guardians got a win. I had great seats and I paid a great price, and it was all thank you to Gametime. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, download the app in reverse order. Download the app first and then create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So, despite the fact that the Cavs haven't signed anybody yet, that doesn't mean all of the free agents are gone. Yeah, it's July 10th, almost July 11th as I record this, but there are still some free agents that are available. Some that I think are fits, some that aren't. Like I said earlier, Hoops Hype put together a list of the best remaining free agents. Saddiq Bey was on it. So instead of being a top 25, it's really more of a top 24. Isaac Okoro was number 5 on this list, by the way. I'm not going to mention him just because I think we were kind of Isaac Okoro'd out on this show for the time being. We will talk more about him certainly when that situation maybe sparks back up a little bit, but I just think we all know that situation at this point. So the first guy they had on this list was Tyus Jones. I like Tyus a lot as a player. I don't think he's someone that makes sense in Cleveland. I don't think the Cavs have the money to pay him. I think Tyus Jones wants to be a starting point guard, and he wants to be a starting point guard on a team that's better than the Washington Wizards. The Cavs are better than the Washington Wizards. The Cavs don't have the ability to make him a starting point guard. I don't see that working out. Up next on the list, this was number 3, so Saddiq Bey was number 2. Number 3 is Gary Trent Jr., and he's someone that I've talked about quite a bit recently on this show because I do think, yeah, he's only 6'5", he's not the ideal size, he's not the ideal wing, but I do think he's someone that could be a good fit in Cleveland. I think that Gary Trent Jr. on this Cavs team could be something that helps. Yeah, I wish he were 6'7". I think that would make him an even better fit. That'd be awesome. But if you can add a guy that, for his career, he's just under 39% from three-point range. So he is a really good shooter. Last year, he shot just a tick under 40%, and he's a high-volume guy. He took 6.5 three-pointers a game last year. He averages about 6.5 three-pointers attempted per game for his career. That is something that I do think the Cavs are missing. I think that there are a couple of ways to get it. one of which maybe Darius Garland shoots more threes. I've been asking for that for a number of years. I think that's the way to really maximize him, is he needs to be somebody that's taking 7 or 8 3-pointers per game to get the most out of him offensively. But Gary Trent Jr. is certainly a downgrade from Isaac Okoro defensively. But I think that the uptick in shooting, and the percentages are about the same, but Isaac Okoro doesn't take enough shots to be felt the same way, to where he doesn't have that gravity, because teams don't believe that he's going to shoot all the time, that he's going to want to pass up open 3-pointers, so they're not going to defend him the same way. To where Okoro had a great year last year, where he shot 39.1% from 3, but he took only 3 of them a game. If you double that output in a very similar minute total, while still shooting that same percentage, that's a really big deal. That's a big upgrade, I think, just from that skill set alone, which is something that I do think that the Cavs could use more of. So while Trent Jr. isn't the ideal size, everyone wants a 6'7", 6'8" wing, and that is absolutely what the Cavs need. I do think he makes some sense in Cleveland. He wanted quite a bit of money. He turned down, I believe, a contract extension offer from the Raptors. Now that deal's not on the table anymore, and now I think he's going to be on sort of maybe a 1-year prove-it deal. And anytime a guy's on a 1-year prove-it deal, the Cavs can kind of play in that ballpark right now, unless it's an upper tier player, which Gary Trent Jr. very clearly isn't. So that is one to think about. Spencer Dinwiddie, I don't think fits here. He was next up on the list. Gordon Hayward was another interesting name that I came across. I don't know how much Gordon Hayward has left in the tank. I really don't. Obviously, when he was with OKC down the stretch after they traded for him last year, it didn't go very well. It didn't. It was not a fun experience for anybody. He talked about it in his end of season availability, where he thought he was going to have a different role, and even the Thunder admitted, yeah, we just kind of wanted to see what would happen, and it didn't work out. That was a mistake, and you very rarely hear teams say that. But I wonder what he's got left, because he's coming off of a season, and Cavs fans know he's not been the same guy since that ankle injury happened back in Cleveland. That was October of 2017, opening night of the 2017-2018 season. Just a gruesome ankle injury at the then Quicken Loans Arena. He's not been the same guy since then. But I do wonder if you could get him, a player like him, on a minimum contract, even if he's going into his age 34 season. If he could be on a minimum contract next year, with the size he has, coming off the bench, he is the type of player, I guess, maybe not so much him, the idea of Gordon Hayward is the type of player that the Cavs need, that the Cavs are missing. That bigger wing that can do a lot of things. I don't know if he can do it anymore. I don't. But if you could get him on a minimum type of deal, a 1-year prove-it deal, to say, hey, I've still got stuff left in the tank. I can figure this out, and then maybe he gets paid somewhere else next offseason. That could be something that makes sense for the Cavs. That could be a deal that I see as something that they should have interest in. I don't know if they do. That's not something that I've heard. But just that type of player is something, especially if it's on a minimum contract like that, that type of player is something that makes sense. Precious Achiuwa, he was up next. I don't think so. Lonnie Walker, no. Luke Kennard, I think Sam Merrill is, maybe a little bit of a smaller version of Luke Kennard, but I don't think that he's in the Cavs' plans. Kyle Lowry, no, does not make sense. Pat Bev, absolutely not. Cedi Osman was on this list, and that was a name that was interesting to me. I don't know what Chedi's future in the NBA has. I do wonder how much Cedi being back in this organization would be welcomed, but I also think that playing for a different coaching staff here could be a really good thing. His year in San Antonio, he didn't play a ton. He played less than 18 minutes a game, which was down from any season in Cleveland other than his rookie year. But he did shoot 39% from 3. And the volume wasn't great, similar to Isaac Okoro's, but he's playing, a very small minute load. I do wonder if a reunion with Cedi Osman could be something that makes sense. I think it's worth thinking about. I think it would have to be on a very manageable contract, something around the minimum. But I do wonder if that's something that makes sense. It's just something to think about. I don't know if it's something the Cavs would be interested. I don't know if it's something Jetty Osman would be interested in. I think at the point when he was part of the sign-in trade that ultimately landed the Cavs Max Strus, I think everybody was kind of ready to move on at that point. But I do wonder if some time away could mean bringing Jetty Osman back makes some sense. It's something to think about. The other thing that I do think is worth thinking about here, and it's timely because he spoke after practice today, but I wonder how much the Cavs are hoping that Emoni Bates can have an NBA role this year. He spent a lot of time with the Cleveland Charge in the G League last year. All reports have been, that he has bulked up. He says he's gained 26 pounds since he arrived in Cleveland last year. He was drafted at 170 pounds, and he says he weighs 196 now. That's awesome. He's put a ton of work into his body, put a ton of work into his game. I do wonder if he's ready for the NBA. I think that is something that is one of the more interesting things to find out with Summer League. And if he is, maybe that changes the equation a little bit. Maybe if you can count on having him be your 8th or 9th guy, again, I don't know that he's ready for it, but maybe if you can count on that, it changes the equation and makes things just a little bit easier for the Cavs to go navigate through this period. So those are the guys that I think do make sense, some that don't, but there are obviously some still available. We will see what happens. So a USA basketball move was made today, and my mind instantly went to a member of the Cavs that's not on that roster, and I don't think he was snubbed. We're going to talk about Donovan Mitchell not being on Team USA next right here on Locked On Cavs. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. I'm Danny Cunningham. You can find me on Twitter at RealDCunningham. After you're done listening to this show, go check out Locked On Pistons. JB Bickerstaff was introduced as Pistons head coach earlier on Wednesday. Go check out what Locked On Pistons has to say about JB Bickerstaff being the new head coach of the Detroit Pistons. And so Kawhi Leonard was on Team USA, obviously member of the LA Clippers, was on Team USA. He has withdrawn from the team due to just nagging knee injuries. I think this is going to be who Kawhi Leonard is really for the rest of his career. And instantly, my mind, and it was pretty quickly reported after the initial news about Kawhi came out, that Derek White would be most likely the guy to take his spot. My mind instantly went to Donovan Mitchell. As you know, I don't know how many NBA players there are around, American NBA players there are, not part of Team USA, that are better than Donovan Mitchell. I mean, in fact, I think that there are guys on Team USA that Donovan Mitchell is better than. I don't need to name names necessarily, but like if I had to pick Tyrese Halliburton or Donovan Mitchell, I'm taking Donovan Mitchell. I named a name, sorry. But I don't think Donovan was snubbed, and here's why. Because when you have to make a change to the roster at this point in the process to where, it is July 11th right now. The Olympics start in 15 days. I'm not sure exactly what day Team USA's first Olympic basketball game is, but the Paris Olympics start July 26th. So when you have to make a change that big to your roster this late in the process, I think it's really difficult to bring over a star player. And Donovan Mitchell is just that. Derek White is a role player. He's a really, really good role player. He's a role player that is rewarded handsomely financially. But he's not a star player. And I think it's a really difficult thing to put a star player in as a late addition. I think it's a really challenging thing. I do wonder what level of interest there was, if there were any conversations had. Donovan didn't play in the World Cup last year. I think that's something that probably kept him out of the Olympics this year. There's been reporting on that from The Athletic as to why that was the case and to why he's not on the Olympic team. But I don't think that this specific instance where you're having to replace a player the way that Team USA is having to replace a player, adding a star player in this late in the game is just, I think, too difficult to do. I think it's too much of a challenge. I think that Team USA made the right move. I really do. And, they are heavy favorites to win gold. I would anticipate that happening. Obviously, we will all be rooting for them. I think they have a great roster. I'm recording this before their game against Canada on Wednesday night is over, so I don't know if they won or lost, but that doesn't matter. But that team's loaded. Adding a star this late in the game like Donovan Mitchell just would have been would have been too tough for everybody. Would have been tough for Team USA, would have been tough for Donovan. I don't know what the level of interest was, but I'm not going to sit here and say Donovan Mitchell was snubbed from Team USA. So I don't believe that was the case, and we will see what happens the rest of the summer. And truthfully, if you are a Cavs fan, I don't know how much you want Donovan Mitchell playing in the Olympics, or really anyone on the roster playing in the Olympics, because all this does is shorten the summer. And truthfully, if you want to spin it this way, you should be thrilled that the Boston Celtics have three players, right? Yeah, three players on the U.S. men's national team. That Jason Tatum, Drew Holiday, and Derek White are all playing. Their season, basically, instead of ending when they won the finals, now goes until the middle of August. And then their off season starts. So if there's something that's going to slow down the Celtics, other than injuries next year, it could be that three of their five best players, I guess we could say, with Porzingis and Jaylen Brown, that three of their five best players had essentially no offseason. And the Cavs are not in that position, and that is something that is a bit of a benefit for the Cavs. On tomorrow's show, and again, thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. On tomorrow's show, going to talk Brandon Ingram, going to talk about a potential Jarrett Allen and Karis LeVert for Brandon Ingram trade. Going to have a guest on. Cannot wait for that. Very excited to tape that episode and get it out to you guys. It's so much fun getting to do this show. Summer League begins tomorrow. Cavs Magic, 4 o'clock Eastern tip-off. We'll probably have some thoughts on that. Saturday, I might do a short little bonus episode with thoughts from the Cavs' first Summer League game. I will be at Summer League next week. I'll be out there for the Warriors game and the Lakers game, so I will be bringing you podcasts from the Las Vegas Strip. I can't wait for that, too. It's going to be a very exciting time. It's always an exciting time to be a Cavs fan, and I can't wait to keep talking to you guys about all of it. It's so much fun getting to do this. It's really one of the best parts of my day every day, and thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Very much appreciate those that are in every single day listening to the show, liking it on YouTube, giving us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. It helps grow the show, and it is appreciated more than you know. So I will be back tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Cavs. Make us your first listen every day. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.